Kamala Harris reached out to Zoran Mamdani to try and leech off of some of his populism, as obviously he's been winning elections for progressives in New York and just been a powerhouse in the political sphere. And she wants to leech off of some of that populism. So essentially, she knows that has been a very uncharismatic person based on the results of the 2024 election, losing to one of the least popular candidates we've had in a long time with Donald Trump. And it just comes down to that she had terrible policy positions that nobody wanted to vote for. She didn't energize her voters. She didn't energize her base. The more she talked and the more she got her message out there, the less people want to vote for her, which is usually the opposite of what you want. Usually, as you get more name recognition, you get a higher percentage of the vote willing to come out. But she essentially disenfranchised her own voters by taking positions that were antithetical to them. One of them that I think of really strongly, besides obviously Israel-Palestine, which was a 70% issue for Democrats at the time of the election, and she took the 30% position, which is to be pro-Israel and not pro-Palestine. So she was pro-genocide. On top of that, she also called Iran number one enemy of the state, of the U.S., and that we would need to have a strong military to deal with them, alluding to the fact that she would probably also have gotten into a similar war and blunder to what Trump has done now. Again, both overwhelmingly unpopular positions. Nobody wants to be sending people off to war here. The strait was open and gas prices were low before we started that. It was just a horrible idea all around. Not to mention the human toll that it takes from bombing children's schools and bombing civilian infrastructures. We destroyed a reservoir that cut off about 20,000 people from water in Iran. And we're, unlimited war crimes just to give cover for Israel to invade Lebanon and do its thing over there. So she's hugely unpopular. One thing you can tell from these establishment Dems is they also don't believe in any of their positions. Easiest way to see this is that when they lose an election, they just fuck right off. None of them stick around to worry about whether or not the things that they supposedly wanted actually implemented actually get done. Bernie Sanders has lost plenty of elections, but he stayed in the public zeitgeist. He stuck around because he's an activist first, where he wants his positions to go forward because he knows they're going to help people. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, all these establishment Dems, you'd even see like Chuck Schumer and stuff. As soon as he's out of power, he's going to just be gone, right? If you would see the same thing from not Cory Booker, but Hakeem Jeffries. I bet you if he was out of the public zeitgeist, if he lost popularity, he would disappear into the ether and become a consultant, because that would be what he felt would get him a leg up in life, not because he had any principled political stances that he wanted to push forward. He would stop doing that as soon as it stopped making a dime for him. So now Kamala Harris is reaching out to Zoran Mamdani and attempting to basically polish up her position before the 2028 elections, because I'm guessing she wants to make another run at the presidency. And I don't think progressives should let her launder her image like that. It would be horrendous, A, for them, because we need to put up a progressive to combat the rising authoritarianism from the right in the US. And B, why give her that time of day? She's got to come kiss the ring. You don't. So make it as painful as possible, essentially. It's not like the establishment Dems are making it easy for progressives to get elected. They literally wouldn't endorse any of the progressive candidates. They wouldn't endorse Zoran Mamdani even after he won the primary. They went out of their way to help Andrew Cuomo running as an independent, not even as a Democrat, when he shifted parties completely after he lost the Democratic primary. These people just generally don't care about democracy as a core concept.
Or vice.
Actually, give me 1 second here. I'm going to cut this from the video, but I need to turn off notifications. Okay, coming back into it now.
President Kamala Harris is reportedly trying to get cozy with some more left wing Democrats, fueling speculation of a 2028 run. According to Axios, she privately called Zohran Mamdani last week, and she's been holding closed door meetings with Palestinian activists. Axios reports Harris called Mamdani to speak about the party's future just 2 days after three candidates, whom the mayor had endorsed, swept their primary races. She also reportedly met with AOC in Chicago back in April, and last week met with the co-founder of the Uncommitted Movement in Detroit. That movement declined to endorse Harris in the 2024 general election, which some have suggested helped Trump win several key Midwest swing states.
Oh, Kamala. Look, she's trying to do damage control because the very left people who are so ascendant right now on the Democratic side don't like her. They didn't like her stance on Israel, Gaza. They think she was way too equivocal, and she was, of course, part of the Biden.
It's not that they think she was way too equivocal. She was way too equivocal for the voter base. She was laying groundwork for them to continue their genocide, and that's not what people wanted during that election. It's like simple as that.
Administration that they thought was absolutely awful on this issue, so there's still lingering resentment toward her. It's interesting that she feels like she needs to, the fact that she thinks she needs to go and try to repair that relationship suggests to me she wants to run for president, because I don't know why you'd bother humiliating yourself, groveling to these people, unless you want them to, they're not going to support you. She wants to mute their criticism of her.
I mean, I think his contempt for, like, you have to grovel to these people is exactly what, why you shouldn't lend her that credence. She wants the bump from progressives. Don't give her the bump. They do vote blue no matter who, unless it's a progressive. So why would progressives go the other way and shoot themselves in the foot, essentially?
An interesting move.
Well, she lost support from large swaths of Muslim population, specifically in Michigan. And she said she met with some leaders in Michigan. And so to me, it's important for presidential hopefuls, if she's going to go that direction, to meet with different factions of your party, especially ones that are growing in popularity, and coming to terms about what they're looking for. A lot of the complaints, whether it was the Democratic autopsy report, whether it was people just complaining.
In case you didn't see that, we went over the Democratic autopsy on stream as well. It was a terrible report. They didn't even ask the question of Israel Gaza because they didn't want to know the answers of it in the report. They didn't include most stuff in it. They just had a bunch of sections that were like read it out and said, like, to include later or to do later. And this is after people asked for it to be released for like a year and a half, and they wouldn't release it. So absolute failure. Like, I could produce a better report just from my freaking house than the entire Democratic establishment did after the guy who was elected the party chair for the Dems ran on releasing that report. So you can't understate how terrible that Democratic autopsy was, because they don't want an autopsy, because they wanted to run her again and pretend like she did everything right and it was just your fault for not voting hard enough. It's not your fault for not voting hard enough. You only get one vote. It's their fault for not energizing their base. It's their fault for being bad at politics, for being bad at being charismatic, which is the sign of a good leader. Like, say what you want about Obama, he was a good public speaker and he was charismatic, which is how he, got to some of the positions that he did. And yet, in today's democracy, Democrats just think you can overlook it because they want toadies who are going to do whatever a corporation wants them to. And they think they can just push in these people that are just uncharismatic shits who can't lead anything. So
online, whether it was AOC type characters, where that voices were not being heard in the party. Young people were not being heard. A lot of young people equally feel as strongly both on the Democratic and Republican side about our support for Israel and how that needs to be modified in these times. And so if Kamala has no stance on that whatsoever, but to be tethered to the Biden administration, she will have to figure out how to navigate that same strategy once again, since people are even more embedded in what happens in the Middle East due to the fact that we're at war overall. And so not only does she need to rectify her relationship.
One thing to note is we haven't technically declared being at war, and in fact, we've shot down multiple attempts to do a War Powers Resolution Act in Congress, which would have officially either declared war or pulled us out. The reason for it is because Democrats and Republicans both agree to stay in Iran. They both want this war, but they don't want their hands dirtied by being the one who voted for the war. So instead, they'll just say, we never voted for it to happen. Whoopsie daisy, Trump just did this on his own. But their vote to not push the War Powers Act is, by denying the War Powers Act, they are voting for this war. They're voting for this war to continue. They're voting for your sons and daughters to go over there and fucking die. So keep that in mind when you're casting your ballot there for anybody who's not a progressive, who is the only party in the U.S. right now that is anti-war, truly pushing back on this idea that we need to embroil ourselves in the Middle East for the next 30 years, and that we need to do anything and everything that Israel wants just because they're our ally. It's a ridiculous idea that if our allies are committing war crimes, we need to support them no matter what. Nobody with a conscience could do that, which is why you have politicians doing it.
Relationship with young people, she needs to rectify her relationship with the progressive wing of the party that feels like they were completely isolated to the point that they almost allowed and aided Trump in winning by not supporting her in places like Michigan that were really important.
Well, a lot of people, a lot of Democrats,
by not supporting her in places like Michigan that were really important.
well, a lot of people, a lot of Democrats in Michigan felt like Trump's views on the very salient Israel issue at the time were more progressive than Kamala's, because Kamala was part of the administration and famously said she wouldn't have done anything differently, whereas Trump said needed to come to an end the violence in Gaza immediately, and then did when elected to try to work out a ceasefire and end to the violence. I think since then it's gone pretty awry, and we're back to where we were beforehand. Although things are not, I think, there's not as many people dying in Gaza on a daily basis, which is good. But so there's dissatisfaction with.
Not as many people dying in Gaza as there were. There are still people dying during a ceasefire, which people now just seem to accept as something that's normal. It's not normal for one side to still be waging war during a ceasefire. Usually that means you cease fire on the other side, that you're on both sides, basically. But in today's day and age, it's asymmetric warfare in that, Israel and the U.S. get to go and commit unlimited war crimes, commit unlimited war, and keep being at war with you even when you're saying we're having a ceasefire, and they agree that they're having a ceasefire, but they don't actually abide by their own agreements. You can't trust any agreements with the U.S. or Israel at this point. I mean, I think if that's not clear on an international stage, I don't know. I think that if that's not clear to you as an international leader, you're too stupid to lead a country. If you actually believe the U.S. or Israel abides by any of its agreements in any capacity, whether that's trade deals that we're going to renege on, or MOUs, or just basic ceasefires. So
How Trump has handled this too, but there's going to be AOC herself probably in the race in 2028. So it's not like Kamala's going to get the support of these people. So I'm not really sure what this means. She just wants them to stop complaining about her.
So I think what's really exciting about the 2028 election is that there are no incumbents. And so it's a really exciting time for both parties to figure out what the direction is. For the last 8 or more years, we've been talking about parties swaying and changing because of Trump on the Republican side, because of progressives on the Democratic side. And so we're about to see a point of culmination on where the party is decidedly going, right? Bernie Sanders felt left out twice when he tried to run for president. He was kind of pushed to the side by the establishment. Now Chuck Schumer may or may not have a job. I mean, these conversations are happening in tandem. And I think the fact that we are going into a presidential election where there's no guarantee, like, okay, this person's already in office, we got to have them again, is going to show you what the appetite is across the board as voters speak up and say what they're looking for. And people have to actually get out and campaign against other people that have similar ideas, but maybe more aggressive policies towards 1, 2, or 3 things. And you'll see what people want. And I think that that's really exciting. When we talked about J.D. Vance and Rubio, you're going to see exactly if those are the 2 final candidates that it really comes down to. what people exactly are looking
have
for, what's more
trouble-
important to that. If you look at the Democrats, whether it's like a Gavin Newsom type or a Kamala or an AOC, is really important to see what people are looking for. And so when a lot of people
Yeah, I think if we see either Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris, first of all, they're interchangeable with each other. They're both establishment Dems. They're going to do the exact same things. They're going to say the exact same things on the trail. They're just going to be slightly different flavors of the same Dorito. Whereas if you have somebody like AOC, she has made some, she has had some issues in the past, I think, but of the people in Congress, I would trust her more than either of them to genuinely push towards more progressive policies that are popular with the base, which would mean that she would enfranchise more of the voter base, which means more people are going to go out and volunteer, door knock, phone bank. More people that wouldn't have otherwise voted because they feel disenfranchised are going to go out and vote. This is something you don't see happen a lot from the Democrats that the Republicans succeeded on. Trump ran on throwing red meat to the base. He took his base that wasn't voting and he made it something to be cool again with the Republican Party, whether you want it or not. Their base found it really cool that he got them exactly what they wanted and pushed for things that the further right wanted. So he didn't get his vote by doing what the Democrats do, where we have to fiddle around in the middle and find these partway Republican voters that we can reach out to and give them half measures of what they could get on the Republican side. Anybody who does that is going to vote Republican because they'd rather, if you're going to do a half measure on immigration, they'd rather have the full measure on immigration. If you're going to do a half measure on war in the Middle East, they'd rather have a full measure in the Middle East, which is why you should appeal more to your base behind you that's disenfranchised, that's not voting. Most people in the US don't vote. That's just a fact. There's more people to vote now than used to. Most people don't vote, and most people are Democrats. So appeal to the base that's not voting, that are already your friends, by actually giving them something to vote for. People haven't had that in years. They've had, oh, just vote for the lesser of two evils. We can't have Trump back in, vote against Trump. It's never vote for me. It's always vote against something else. And that's something that we just don't see in the US anymore. So
people from Charlemagne to the biggest analyst in politics.
I'm actually going to call it good there on this one. Thanks for watching. I'm looking to put out more videos on politics, gaming, and everything you might be interested in. So if you like this video, feel free to drop a like, subscribe, comment. If you didn't like it, feel free to also drop a comment. I'll still respond. And I'll see you in the next one.